And I don't know if maybe just like his noodle is just like really flexible and it's like, I don't know what it is, but his hips are not moving. They're all like doing all the work. Like they're just hips flexing, all of that. Like they've clearly done yoga. He has done nothing.
It's a barbarian thing, Sean. You wouldn't understand.
We all know the truth. More connects us than separates us. But in times of crisis, the wise build bridges, while the foolish build barriers.
You raise walls, I destroy them. Let's see who prevails.
Just because something works doesn't mean that it cannot be improved.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Allow my sword to join you in the fight against evil.
The world needs us to chase dreams.
We have to dedicate ourselves each and every single day to this fight because I can't do it alone.
You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
Welcome to Torture Cinema, a subcast of the Skiffy and Fanny Show.
At the dawn of time, the world was covered in flames, as this movie should have been.
Yay! I'm Sean.
I'm Steven.
And I'm Daniel.
And we're here today to talk about Kull the Conqueror, the most dumbass fucking film we have watched in so long. Why are we here? Oh, fuck. So, we'll get into that, I guess, in a minute, but we should probably I feel like I'm having, like, one of those moments where you, like, realize you're 35, and you have no accomplishments, but you feel like you should, and this movie is just, like, giving me existential crises. That's what I'm having right now.
Watching it last night just felt like a step backwards in my adulthood. Not only did it like slow down my life, it was like I was stepping back and making myself less mature.
Well, you know why? Because it's the most 90s thing to ever 90s. It's
I think you're right.
But yes, it is the most 90s thing. It's basically just Hercules.
Yeah.
But slightly longer.
With more bang, yeah.
With more bang because they had a larger budget, but I gotta be totally honest, as a kid who grew up watching Hercules, I don't know where they spent the budget. Because it certainly wasn't on high-end effects or choreography.
Harvey Fierstein?
I don't even know.
I don't know.
Anyway, okay, so we should probably pause and get to what we're drinking before we really rip this film a tiny new hole in its feet. So I will start with you, Steven. What are you drinking, sir?
I am drinking a Bone Shaker. It's an unfiltered IPA by Toronto's Amsterdam Brewing Company. It's bitter, like I feel about having had to watch this movie.
It's also got more substance, apparently, than this movie.
Considerably.
What about you, Daniel? What are you drinking?
I am drinking a 2013 Chateau Fort Lignac Haute Médoc.
You brought fancy shit to this podcast?
Well, you know, some of us are of noble blood and not barbarian beer drinkers.
Jesus. Oh, so true.
Oh, no.
I'm guessing you're having beer?
Oh, so I was really tempted to see if I could find, like, a mead or something.
Right.
You know, just to kind of go with the barbarian theme. But then I realized, like, I spent half this movie wondering what made him a barbarian, other than he didn't have a shirt. Because literally there's nothing in this film that says to me he's a barbarian.
And he's from Atlantis.
Right, he's from Atlantis, so A, like, that's even less barbarian. So what makes him... I just didn't understand the whole time. I was like, at least do something barbarian-like. Like, once. Like, I don't know, like spank a cow or something, and, like, just something. I don't know why that would make it more barbarian, but, like, he's not a barbarian in this fucking movie. There's nothing about it. It's, like, the most milquetoast wannabe Conan, like, cousin of the cousin of Conan. So, yeah, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll get mead, or I'll make some sort of mixed drink that's sort of, like, vaguely on theme, and then I realized, no, why would I put my effort into that? They didn't put that much effort into making this shit film, so... I went with what's in my fridge.
Oh my goodness.
It happens to be 2 Lithbridge beers I will be drinking tonight. One is the Juice Z IPA. It's a New England IPA, and then later I'll have the Hop Dish IPA. Both of these are Minnesota brewery stuff, so
bitterness all around.
Yeah, that should be good. So I'll be well hopped up by the end of this. Well, okay, that's what we're drinking. And I guess it's time for us to like talk about this movie, which means we gotta like tell what the movie is about. And I guess since we kind of vaguely agreed that I would just do it, and then we couldn't agree on what the actual summary should be because originally you guys had just suggested like some like sword and sorcery
shit.
Yeah, but then we realized not a lot of actual sword and sorcery happens. There's a little sword, there's a little sorcery, and lots of just Kevin Sorbo without a shirt.
Now, do the older ones? I've never been a fan of like the Ray Harryhausen type, the old school sort of sword and sorcery epics. Were the heroes in that also often bare-chested? Or was it just, they had like light, piratey type shirts on and that was about it?
Yeah, they had piratey shirts, or they wore, in the Sinbad movies, they wore vests or swashbuckly attire. I mean, there wasn't that sort of general shirtlessness in those movies.
The only I can think of is like the really bad Hercules ones, the Italian Hercules one that they've done on Mystery Science Theater.
The sword and sandal, yeah.
Yeah, the sword and sandal type epics, those all did, but...
Yeah, I think like the 70s and like 80s decided like maybe they shouldn't have shirts. And when they did it with Arnold, it worked pretty well because he looks pretty great without a shirt. At least when he was young. I mean, I don't know what he looks like now. It's not what I spend my time Googling, like shirtless Arnold.
Tell the truth now, Sean.
Yes, on my work computer, regularly, shirtless Arnold. Oh, no, because you find out some of his nudes that way. And that's not what I want to see, per se. But yeah, so like all the Conan films, he's shirtless, but like that's like kind of a weird era when it's like, let's do He-Man too, and like Masters of the Universe, and then they brought in like Dolph Lundgren, who didn't speak any English, so he did it all phonetically. Like all of this weird stuff, which has lots of shirtlessness, but mostly because the men look pretty good. And admittedly, Kevin Sorbo's shirtlessness, I mean, he's pleasant to look at.
Yeah, he looks fine. It feels really odd for that era.
It does. It's the 90s.
Like, I can't think of other movies kind of like remotely like that.
I'm sure there is one.
There must be, but...
That's probably just as uncomfortable. Yeah. So, okay. All right. So, in all seriousness, this movie is about Kull, hence the title. Kull is a barbarian from Atlantis, or so we're told. And the opening of the film is essentially like he's in a fight because he, I guess, wants to be in the king's army, led by a general who's a dick. And he doesn't really get it, but by some stroke of craziness, the king decides he's going to murder his entire family. So everyone rushes back to the castle keep or whatever, and then Kull and the king like get into a fight, and then Kull kills the king, and then the king, for some fucking reason, decides, like none of my children will get it, so fuck off, Kull, you get to have it. And so he inadvertently becomes king, because of course that this society makes no sense. And the rest of the movie is some like weird intrigue because there's like a weird red witch called Shakalaka, Akavasha, whatever her name is. I don't know. She's an evil witch, and they like resurrect her and like try to get Kull, and then he has to go on like an adventure, and he meets like a woman who originally is like his slave woman, and then he's like, but I'm gonna free you, and like there's just a bunch of other shit. But for the most part, like everything I just said, I think is pretty much the first 5 minutes of the movie. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that happens, but it's like really hard to follow because this plot is dense as hell. There's like people spying in the background, and there's people like trying to usurp his authority, and they technically kind of sort of kill him at one point, and then he's not dead, and like the witch is like crazy, and she like melts people's faces.
Well, part of the problem is like the characters, they all seem to like already know each other and have this backstory, and we're all there like, what the hell is going on? Like, we don't know. We haven't seen all this.
It's bizarre because, I mean, look, we all like a good in media res opening, right? It's like start the story in the middle. That's cool. That's a thing you can do. It worked for Star Wars. This is not Star Wars.
You don't say.
In case anyone was confused, this is not Star Wars. But like there's a fine line between in media res and WTF, and this jumps way over to the other side. I have heard, I recall reading something online about this, I was looking up the movie a little bit, that this was originally the script for a Conan sequel that fell through as a Conan sequel. And so they just made it they just grabbed another Robert E. Howard property and decided to call it Kull, which explains why there was some backstory there. You're supposed to know some of these people, I guess.
So it's based off of one of the later Conan books, apparently.
Correct.
Like one of the last ones written. And I guess Kevin Sorbo didn't want to simply be a recast Arnold. So just they decided we'll just change the character to Kull, this other character he had. That's the sense that I got.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so like Arnold refused to do the third Conan movie, so they like weirdly made this film, but it makes no sense outside of the context of Conan. Because we know sort of Conan's story across two films, and also those two films are fantastic and make way more sense than this fucking film does. So they just sort of like redid it, I guess, and in the process like added little bits in from the books about Kull, and we're like, yeah, the audience will understand this. That this film probably would have just made more sense if they had just called it Hercules.
Mm-hmm.
They also could have just gone with Conan O'Brien, had it done with. Made him the replacement.
Was he even around at that? He was, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was writing for The Simpsons, probably.
Anyway, so yeah. So this film is... It's hard to describe what it's about. Just go read the wiki summary and don't pay to watch it. Please, just don't. But we'll get to why, I guess, pretty soon. But we're going to start by being positive. Right, guys? Positive.
Oh, God.
Sure.
I do just want to note that I realize that this is an all-dudes podcast. And I will also note that this was not by intent. It just happened to be that way. One other person who was going to be here was unable to be here. Sorry.
Aw.
But I think it is going to be amusing, the fact that it's three dudes watching a movie that's meant to be the most masculine film we've watched in a while, that honestly feels like an indictment of American masculinity. But positive. We're going to be positive. So, I'm going to jump to you, Steven, with your first like. Go.
So my first like is that for a movie starring Kevin Sorbo playing a nominal barbarian set in the 90s, this movie is much less stupid about consent than it could have been. It's actually almost not bad on consent. There's that scene early after Conan becomes king, where he's hanging out with Zaretta,
I think.
Zaretta, who is a seer, but also a slave in the former king's harem, and Kull is into her, but she points out that even if she liked him as a slave, she cannot consent. She cannot consent. The fact that he takes that in as someone who has been enslaved himself, respects it, and moves forward with attempting to find ways to free the slaves and to treat her as someone who he respects and thinks of as someone who's not property and has agency and can make her own decisions. That's, especially for the 90s when our discourse around consent was certainly not where it is now, that's not bad. And I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, the movie makes, or the script makes a real point of, like, really having an entire scene over that issue of consent. And so you don't even see that often in movies today, so.
No, you really don't. Although this film does this weird thing where every time I feel like the character's going to be progressive, he backtracks on it like a second later. And it's just really confusing, and it drives me kind of nuts.
It's like he's trying to find the limits.
Like, oh, he's not really a barbarian because he's actually progressive. Like, he thinks women should have consent rights and all of this stuff, and like, he's not cool with slavery, and that's all great. And then he'll do, just the second later, he'll be like, you know what? I feel like spanking all of them with a sword. Why not? And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Just stop. Spanking with swords doesn't actually occur in this. This is just my version of what I imagined is happening. But it's just bizarre. But at least, like, it makes a nominal effort at dealing with consent and slavery.
It was not terrible for the 90s. I'm not saying it was good.
Does it pass the Bechdel test?
No, because we never see the concubines talking amongst themselves, and Akivasha only speaks to other men, and so does Zaretta.
Well, that's depressing. Well, thank you, Stephen. Trying to bring a little positivity to this podcast.
I did my best.
All right, Daniel, go.
What struck me was that Kevin Sorbo just seems to be having like one hell of a good time making the movie. And that was something that I did enjoy, because as awful as it is, there were moments where I just kind of could shut off my brain and say like, yeah, this is a fun ride. Moments where there actually was action or a funny line or something, intentional or unintentional. But he never took... I haven't seen the original Conan movies with Arnold and such, but Sorbo doesn't seem to really be taking the role that seriously. And he seems to be recognizing what it is, and that this is just an opportunity for him to continue the success that he has found on TV with Hercules, to just have a bigger budget, broader scale, sort of fun acting without his shirt on for the big picture. And he enjoys that ride, and it's kind of fun just watching him, in all honesty.
I'm just not sure what to say to that.
I mean, well, nothing Daniel said is wrong. It doesn't make it a better movie, but it's, yeah, I mean, you can tell that he's having a good time. You can tell that Harvey Fierstein is having a good time. Heck, Tia Carrere seems to be having a good time.
Okay, I mean, yeah, Sorbo does seem to be enjoying himself. I think because he just saw this as a bigger paycheck than one episode of Hercules, and so he just got to swing a sword a lot. But he did get injured on this movie. I don't know if you knew this.
Oh, no.
He nicked himself with a, quote, dull blade, by the way, a prop blade that was dull, and then at his request from that point on, he used a rubber sword, because I guess he nicked himself. Specifically nicked himself. Like, a limb didn't come off, he didn't need stitches, he nicked himself. And he was like, I need rubber.
Well, I guess it depends where he nicked himself.
Oh, you mean he nicked his nether bit?
Who knows?
Oh, this explains a lot about one of my dislikes, so I'm gonna shut up. Well, great. Alright, well then I guess I gotta go for a like then. And probably one of the few things I actually like about this movie is that they appear to have used a real castle for the sets.
There was a castle?
Yeah, there's like, whatever, it's a castle. I'm not saying it's like the greatest castle in the world. It's probably the cheapest castle they could get.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
But it's just kind of nice that they used a real castle.
Actually, I completely forgot about that, because a lot of the movie was filmed in Croatia, I think, which isn't common per se, and that actually does give the film a nice sort of authenticity in some way.
Yeah, it's Devon Castle in Bratislava, Slovakia. Yeah, but they were also in Croatia for some of the filming as well, so they kind of went back and forth between the two. And I believe the king was, I forget his name, but he was a strong man, and I want to say he was Slovakian. And he got gold and I think a silver as a strong man.
No, Sven Ole Thorsen. I'm guessing Swedish. Oh, no, Denmark.
Oh, well then he's not Slovakian. Never mind.
Copenhagen.
Anyway, yeah, so I like that the castle's in it, and because I like castles. It's not a very compelling like, guys.
There's not much to really strongly like from this, I don't think.
No, there really isn't.
There really isn't. There's a lot that I'm ambivalent about, but...
I had another like.
Ooh.
Well, we'll get to it in a bit, Stephen.
All right.
Hold your horses.
I'm sorry, I got excited.
We're going to go now to dislikes, because I think we've just been chomping at the bit to get there. And that means it goes to you, Steven. Your first dislike, sir. Go.
Oh my goodness. Wow, there are a lot of things to choose from. Well, I think I'm going to start with something that perhaps isn't going to encroach on anyone else's dislike. So, we open this movie on a big fight scene where Kull is trying to prove himself, and then he gets into he tries to prove himself in a one-on-one fight with the general, and who's a jerk. They do a blindfolded flaming sword fight, which you would think would be really cool, and it's not. But the reason is, or one of the reasons is, and something that was bugging me all through this movie, those were so obviously prop weapons. And it was irritating. Like, they obviously had no heft. Everybody's throwing their swords around and throwing axes around like they have no mass at all. I mean, if it's a sword, it weighs something. I mean, no, it does. It's not impossible for a person to lift, but it should have some heft. Those weapons clearly had no heft. They had nothing to them. No wonder they were whipping them around and throwing them through the air. It annoyed me. I know, that's probably not what you were expecting, but that's my first dislike.
No, it wasn't. I thought you would go full on for the related category, but you went straight for the weapons. And as we have just learned, there's a reason now for why it is, because poor Kevin Sorbo nicked himself, and he had to use rubber weapons.
And that explains a great deal.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what point in filming he nicked himself, so if you dared to rewatch the film, maybe you could see the point at which, like, well, those scenes were shot with an actual metal prop, and those were not. But to be totally honest, no idea, and I have zero interest in going back through this film to find those moments. But agreed. Yeah, you're right, because, like, they throw weapons around at various points, and he throws an axe at one point. And, like, the closest point at which it looked like it had any heft was in the opening scene when he throws it out into the water. Because it sort of looks like he's making an effort. But later on, it's just sort of like he's swinging the axe around in a fight like it's a toothpick.
With this rubber, I roll.
How many times have you all lifted a double-edged axe of that size and tried to swing it? I imagine, even with strong arms, it's kind of difficult.
I'm guessing.
Along with the weapons, is there a reason why one would light your sword on fire during a duel?
Scare people?
Like, does it have any other function other than looking like, ooh, cool or something?
Oh, in that specific duel? Because
it seemed utterly pointless.
Oh, I think it's just sound, like, because they have to work by sound, right? But they're in water, too. Right. And there's even a point when he dips the sword in the water and the flames are gone, and I was like, oh, maybe they're going to do something with that. But you're right, it kind of is pointless. It doesn't serve any purpose. It's just quote-unquote cool.
I guess. Anyway, it made me think of that. It annoyed me.
Look, we're going to find real quick that this is a world that has no logic.
Well, I thought maybe I just didn't know something about weapons and sword battles or something.
Well, if it helps, Daniel, the people who made this movie didn't know anything about weapons either.
Agreed. Oh my gosh.
All right. So, Daniel, it's your turn. Give us a dislike.
So, one of the earliest dislikes I had from it is the film score.
Oh god, yes.
So,
yes.
It's scored by Joel Goldsmith, who is the son of famous film composer Jerry Goldsmith, who's not necessarily the most well-known either, but is probably most notable for scoring like Star Trek, a lot of the Star Trek movies. Joel collaborated apparently on the score for First Contact, but the blandness of it I wasn't enjoying. And it's this weird mid-late 90s amalgam of trying to be like a grunge rock opera, but then also having classical music in there and trying to like harken back to the earlier days and be very operatic. But it does all of those things just poorly. So like the guitar music is bad and the rock opera aspect of it is bad. The opera part or the classical music isn't particularly resonant. And in all cases, the film score doesn't enhance. It just like made the movie more laughable to me.
Yeah, and one of my notes was the music is trying too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it is so bad.
It's I get it. You want to be cool, but there's nothing less cool than trying to be cool soundtrack, and you're not making it. And when they really pumped it up, and Daniel, this is exactly what you were saying about the whole grunge rock opera thing, and in the final battle between Kull and Talacarno, when where it's like no, and they just bring up we're gonna have this would be by a really cool band if this was a good movie.
I was expecting it to turn into like an MTV music video and like a hair band was going to be in the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
Like just rocking out or something as this was going on.
And that would have been an improvement, but
that might have been.
Might have been. If like right in the middle they're having the fight and the hairband like comes up like on the stage, like on a raised stage, comes out of the floor and it's like
some dry ice. Turn it to 11.
Yeah. Like Kiss or something. That would have been great. Mm-hmm. Like if Kiss showed up in the background.
They would have fit in the movie, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been fun. I would have been like, all right, like I know this is stupid and it makes no sense in the film, but I am into it.
Well, the guy who played the wizard, too, he was originally almost in a band, if I remembered reading that. Anaros, the guy who played Anaros. Oh, yeah, he was almost in the Sex Pistols.
He was in the Sex Pistols, or almost?
Almost. He was considered as a replacement for Johnny Rotten. And he recorded with the band, apparently. So. And he also worked with Richard O'Brien of Rocky Horror.
Oh, wow. Daniel, you put a lot more effort into researching this than
well, I was just going to say, I feel bad because you have like all these notes and such, and here I am just drinking my wine, trying to go on my brain.
Wow. Okay, so my first dislike, it's really hard because normally I would go for the low-hanging fruit here because this film does have one of my greatest pet peeves in all cinema, which is having a scroll of text that is then read to me, which I hate more than anything on this earth, because it's just the most annoying shit in the world. I don't need you to read me the text. If you're gonna have text there, then let me read the text. If you're gonna have voice, just no text and just have none of that. But that's not where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna start with the fact that this film has the worst sex scenes I have ever seen. I don't know what Kevin Sorbo's problem is, but he does not know what a pelvic thrust is.
Well, that Nick was probably holding him back.
Wait, what?
He got nicked. It's holding him back. It's very simple.
Well, that's starting to make sense because it's what I said earlier, right? It might connect to one of my dislikes.
You were right.
Maybe he couldn't because he got nicked in that region and he was like, all right, I can't thrust because it hurts. In which case, just grow a sack, I guess. Because he just gotta get... But like, every time he has anything that approaches sex in this movie, it is like the most impassionate, awful sex I have ever seen. And I don't know if it's like a personal thing, because I know he's very Christian, so maybe he has like some rules about exactly how he handles sex scenes, which I can respect, that's fine. But I guess I think for that would be just maybe don't actually have the sex, just have some making out, and then just kind of like fade to black and just leave it at that. Because if you're going to show me a sex scene, like I want to feel like you actually are into it, right? Like that's what the acting is for. But these sex scenes are like him just laying there and like the woman usually making all of the effort to show that she's into it, and him just like he's just doing that thing. Remember all like the kids were doing the like they were like laying flat and stuff. Whatever you call that. What was that thing?
What?
Remember, like we were taking lots of pictures of themselves laying in weird places and just be like totally flat, like they would be like on top of like a fire hydrant, and they'd be like just balanced flat.
What the hell are you talking about?
I don't. Was this something in your dreams?
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Like,
okay,
either like,
what the fuck?
I'll get it for you. It's out of fashion now, but it is a thing.
Okay,
I'm gonna Google kids laying flat on things.
These kids today, and they're lying prone.
Oh,
okay,
God,
man.
What is it called?
Was there actually more than one sex scene really in it? Because with the witch, I mean, she pretty much just like knocks him, thinks she's killing him, but doesn't.
they're grinding on each other, and then later on he's writhing around with Zaretta, and then he sees the witch's face instead.
Correction. He's not writhing. Everyone else is writhing.
That's true.
He is completely still. His hips are not moving. And I don't know if maybe just like his noodle is just like really flexible and it's like, I don't know what it is, but his hips are not moving. They're all like doing all the work. Like they're just hips flexing, all of that. Like they've clearly done yoga. He has done nothing.
It's a barbarian thing, Sean. You wouldn't understand.
How? For fuck's sake, like the Dothraki are supposed to be quote unquote barbarians and they know how to fuck.
Maybe he needs his axe.
He needs to hold it. I hold axe. I hold axe and bone. I don't know why he has an accent, because Kevin Sorbo has no accent in this movie. Anyway, the thing I was talking about is called planking, which is... I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. It's a fucking thing. Fuck you both. I hate you all. It is a thing that was like a popular fad maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. I'm maybe getting off because I'm 35. Sorry for anyone who's under the age of 29. Yeah. But yeah, so planking is this thing. It was like a fad that people would do. Yeah, so they would lie down or they would lay on things, but they would be like totally straight with their arms down and out. And they would like do it on all kinds of stuff. So they do it like weird places, like the Statue of Liberty, or they just do it in like a field somewhere, whatever it is. And that's what I imagine Kevin Sorbo to be like in this movie when he's having sex, is he's just planking.
Apparently it's also a term for a sexual position.
Where you just lay there? Like a plank?
I don't know.
How is that sex?
I just Googled planking during sex.
Why did you Google that?
There's an article here on Let's Run. Planking versus vigorous missionary sex for core work.
For core? Wait, it's literally about the exercise planking during sex?
Yes, and how that can... So maybe that's just his technique.
This is why no one should ever listen to Instagrammers.
We just found out why he does it. It's so he can get rock hard abs.
Just leaving his shirt off just saves time.
That's true. He can get to it much quicker.
Oh, Kull, let's make love finally with me as a free woman. Oh, good. I need to work on my core. What the hell?
That's the sexiest thing that's ever been said. I need to work on my core. Let's bone.
Oh, I didn't think I could hate this movie anymore.
Okay, we're gonna go back to likes. Alright, so let's get back to likes again. So second round, let's go to you, Steven. Give us your second like, please.
For the entirety of this movie, I did not think I was going to have a second like. And then the credits began. And it's not just because I was glad the movie was over, although I was. It's because one of the very first credits was a technical consultant credit for L. Sprague de Camp. And I thought that was really cool. L. Sprague de Camp was a fantasy and science fiction writer who was active from 30s for decades, and was a noted writer who wrote a considerable amount of swords and sorcery, and wrote a biography of Robert E. Howard, as well as many works of his own. And throughout the whole movie, I'd been thinking, this is terrible, but someone involved in this production knows they're Robert E. Howard. There's too much here that actually clearly is directly rooted in the source material. Somebody knows what they're doing. And then the credits rolled, and I saw a nice credit for L. Sprague de Camp. He died, I think, in the early 2000s, 2000 or 2003, something like that. And so this must have been one of the last professional things he did. And it was nice to see him get that credit, and hopefully he got some money out of it. That was cool.
How far into the credits was that?
He was very first. He was like right at the top.
Okay, I must have blacked out.
I don't blame anyone for checking out long before then, but it was nice to see.
That's like a legitimate like. I have nothing like funny or stupid to say about that.
I'm sorry.
Like, how do you say anything? It's just nice. Okay, so let's jump over to Daniel. Daniel, please give us your last like.
I'm glad this is the last like, because it's the only other thing I could come up with. And that's the character of Zoraida. I actually liked that character a fair amount. And Karina Lombard as well, the actress who plays her. And so what I liked about the character is that out of everybody in the film, I think she's the most well-rounded. She has some complexity to her. She's a slave, effectively a prostitute in the king's harem. But she also has backstory that just seemed to work a little better compared to Kull character, who's also Conan, that was a pirate, but is also a barbarian from Atlantis. Her being a seer that then entered into or got enslaved by the king and is now a part of the king's harem, you end up finding out is connected to, basically she's done it as a sacrifice in a way for her brother, if I remember correctly, who plays a priest of, I don't know, the one deity in the film this is the part of the plot that never made sense to me. But in any case, I like that fact. It gives you a little understanding of why she is where she is and why she has sort of resigned herself to this slavery, and it goes in hand with what Stephen was saying before about consent and how she says, like, I am a slave, and even if I were to have feelings about something, that's not my position is not one of power. Everybody else is in power over me, and so I can never really have that consent because of that power differential. And you get the sense that she's not happy in the position that she has, but she's not going to apologize for it, and she's not going to apologize for what she is doing and what she has to do, because it is something she has to do, and she's doing it for what she considers to be a higher call or a higher cause. And so I appreciated that aspect of the character, and in general, we open this up with sort of talking about how the movie gets into images of masculinity, or if anything, I think she is the one character that shows the greatest strength and resilience, and she's able to get out of trouble on her own in most cases in the movie, as far as I can recall. The victory of, the good people in this movie is ultimately because of her, pretty much entirely, and very little due to the Kull character himself. And so I found that refreshing, and again, sort of going in hand with what Steven said, surprising for a movie from this time period.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, there's a I hesitate to say depth, but there's a bit more going on there than certainly in Kull and any of the other characters, really. I mean, the villains are just generic baddies who are bad because they're bad and want to bring about evil. And her brother Escalante, the priest of Volca, is pretty one note, but she has some stuff going on. She's got her insight, she's got her experience of this situation she has been forced into, but also chose to help her brother. She's got strength, as you said. Yeah, she is the least bad character.
Yeah, that's accurate. Totally accurate. Not as the least bad character in a film that is questionable on almost every level. Well, so this dovetails kind of nicely into what is my like, so I'll just throw it out there so that I can add it to this conversation. And that is that this film, while I won't say that its representation is perfect, it is a film that features at least 3 actors of native ancestry or possible actual native representation more directly. I don't know how Tia Carrera properly identifies herself, but her ancestry is a kind of a mixture. She's got Hawaiian, a Filipino, and a number of other things going on. But 2 of the other actors are Native American. Lightfoot, who plays Escalante, the priest we've been talking about, is a member of the Cherokee Nation. And Karina Lombard, if I recall, is also Native, but I can't recall off the top of my head exactly which group she affiliates with. So this is a film that features quite a number of people of color, some who are members of native nations, others who are maybe of Pacific Islander.
French Polynesian.
Yeah, French Polynesias, yeah, and so on and so forth. So there is quite a lot here, and the cast does feature, there's Harvey Fierstein, and there are some other characters, Sven Ole Thorsen, we've talked about before, who's sort of more international. Kevin Sorbo, I think, is obviously from the planet Vulcan, so he's very much unique in his own right. But it is nice to see a film that is this far back that, well, it is not perfect in how it represents people, and certainly doesn't necessarily make it very obvious that it's intending to represent them based on their past. It at least has actors who are diverse in their presentation, which I think is great. Also worth noting, Harvey Fierstein is a gay man. I don't know if Harvey Fierstein, his character Juba, was meant to be, potentially.
Oh, he totally was. He is very much coded as gay. I mean...
You think so?
Well, yeah, firstly, he's played by Harvey Fierstein. And secondly, there's the terrible joke when he's trying to beg off going on the voyage with them by saying he, quote, hates the smell of fish.
Oh, God. Wow, you really read into that line.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
So it was not a nice joke by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely it was meant to code him as gay.
I mean, let's be real. There are not any real jokes in this entire movie.
There's one. A wham-up
one joke.
on Kevin
Yeah,
Sorbo.
there is one. Yeah.
Go on, tell us the joke, Steven.
A wham-up he's on Kevin Sorbo. I thought it was funny.
No.
You take your laughs where you can get them, man.
Oh, God. But anyway, yeah, so it's diverse. That's all I got. All right, shall we do our last dislike?
Our last dislikes, sure. If you want to limit us, yeah.
I'm limiting you like I'm limiting this film. Steven, last dislike, go.
Okay, so the first thing I thought when this whole stupid movie started, even before I saw the fake swords, was this thing looks like a really bad TV show. A bad 90s TV show, specifically. It so failed to use its status as a movie, its options as a movie. It was shot like a TV show. All those close-ups of hair, it was cut like a TV show. The music fit in like it would fit in on a TV show. I mean, Sean, you've said more than once, I think, over this podcast that it felt like a couple of episodes of Hercules. That's not just because of the quality of the story or the structure of the story. It's because in every respect, this was like a not very well made piece of TV thrown up on the big screen. It was blatant, and it was a real disservice to cinema, and it made me mad.
We can't tell from the tone of your voice that you might be mad, Steve.
I'm just trying to be clear here.
That's a nuance that you picked that I just didn't register with me until you said it, and you're totally right. It is completely shot just like a television show would be. The look of it,
cut from one face to a reaction shot of the other face.
Camera, yeah, the way the camera work is done.
Yeah.
The tone of it, the colors.
Yeah,
the tone,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it really does look like TV. Sean, it doesn't surprise me that you said the director had been primarily known for involvement in television. It felt like television.
Yeah, that's a problem of the 90s in general, though. There's a lot of like stuff that feels like it was written for TV. There used to be good TV back then.
There was good TV back then.
And then they made this movie. Okay, all right, let's jump over to you, Daniel, so we can try to get this podcast in under an hour 15. Let's do it.
All right, so I guess I'm going to go with a plot aspect that I just pissed me off. The whole villain plot just made no sense to me and just felt utterly uninspired at all levels. From the level of sort of like the children of the former king that Kull killed, sort of acting nice, but very obviously just plotting to want to overthrow Kull now, so that it wasn't really fooling anybody, to somehow their plan involved using this necromancer to resurrect this queen from the ancient kingdom that that the god had, smote that kingdom from the face of the planet somehow. And somehow the corpse of this witch sorceress was just sitting in this necromancer's house or wherever the hell he was, and just waiting for him to chant a few things and do a few things to the body to resurrect this desiccated corpse into Tia Carrere, who then she throws herself into the role, but she doesn't do much. I mean, she tries to kill Kull, but then discovers he's, too strong or something to kill like she normally would.
No, she just wants to do him.
And, well, she chains him up, and okay, then you're just gonna have him in your, little S&M dungeon or something. But no, that's not really it either. Then she just sends the minions out to, do her work to go after them after he gets away. But she's not doing much directly to influence things, even though she supposedly has all this great power. Meanwhile, the humans that resurrected her have doubts because, things aren't exactly going to the way that they planned it, and she's being mean to all of them too, and they realize they're kind of screwed, so they want to stop her too. It was just a shit show, and I never quite understood what the hell the bad guys were really trying to do. What is their end game here?
So it seemed like what they were trying to get at was that the bad guy wants to turn into a demon monster and take over the world and burn it into fire. That seemed to be where they were going, but it doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
Well, yeah, that's where she was going, but it was super unclear what, the two nobles, the general and his idiot cousin, what they thought they were getting out of the deal.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't seem to know that she was, the demon witch critter reborn. So how did they think they were being helped?
Right.
They were trying to seize power. That was relatively clear, but
they didn't think past that point.
And why did they think the necromancer was even helping them? What did he do?
Yeah, he just raised a crazy evil witch person. And I mean, there's even that moment where you could just tell they had no concept of how scenes should connect to one another, where one moment the general is yelling at Avocado, whatever her name is, and just going, "No, I want my thing." And she's just going, "You'll never get it. I'll take it from you," or whatever. And then the next scene they're together, he's lovey-dovey with her, but he's also secretly planning. And I'm how is she not aware that no, that's not normal. Even an evil witch knows that's not a normal transition from yelling at your face and being insolent to lovey-dovey.
And Necromancer heard him. Necromancer heard him saying mean things about her as he stalked out, wiping her kiss off his face.
Didn't he say something like "stupid bitch" or something like that? Or...
Yeah.
I think he says "stupid witch" or something, but he might say "stupid bitch."
Oh, yeah. That's not what I heard.
Bitch, witch. Who knows? But even though the Necromancer is supposed to be devoted to Akavasha beyond all reason, he never says he's plotting against you.
Well, at that point, he's kind of been screwed over by her because he keeps going. I mean, he's doing the weird fuckboy thing, which is "I'm a nice guy, you should pick me" thing.
Yeah.
Because he's just trying to get in her pants. He's "I am your loyal servant.
Oh my god, he's
be my friend."
He's he's nice. He's Renfield as a nice guy.
He
oh
really
my
is.
god.
And she keeps rebuffing him. And rightly so, because, whatever, that's fine. She doesn't have to bone whoever just happens to, raise her from the dead. But, he'll yell at her and be "No, you can't do that." And she'll be "Shut the fuck up." And just, blah, melt his face off. And he's just, keeps coming back for more until eventually at least he had character development. Because he got to the point where he stopped mouthing off and saying anything, because he'd been melted all those times.
And then he dies, and it's so stupid. It's the stupidest magical confrontation I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of bad movies.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna throw my magic snake at you, Kull. And then he does, and Kull just grabs it and throws it back at him, and it goes into his face, and he dies and falling into the magical fire and gets atomized. It's even stupider than the way his ape man died, and that was stupid.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, God, that ape man. Oh, yeah. That was another dislike.
I'm very upset about the ape man because he deserved better. I thought we were going to get a whole thing where he'd do like a heel face turn and help Kull get out and like be their ape guy on the inside. But instead, he gets a really horrible death.
Yeah, he gets choked to death.
He gets hanged, and you can hear him squealing as Kull stomps away. And it's like nobody else gets a death that rough.
And he doesn't even get language. He like the whole time he just goes, "Ugh." Like that's his. Like the whole time I kept thinking, like this poor bastard has got sucked into some shit he didn't know he was getting into. Like.
This is exactly. He thought he was a lackey for a necromancer. This is way above his pay grade. It's not fair.
It really isn't.
He should talk to the 8-man union, but
he really should. I had really had hope, and I know that wouldn't happen because it's called Kull the Conqueror, so of course Kull has to live to the end. But there's the moment when the 8-man bites into the chains. He's just tearing up chains with his mouth because his jaws are that strong. And I was like, oh please, grab onto a part of Kull, please. Please, just chomp.
Yeah, just chew Kull's face.
Oh, that would have been great.
So where the hell did this ape thing come from?
I'm not familiar with the Conan world, so outside of the films.
That was another one where it totally confused me. It's the only one we see.
Right?
He just kind of shows up, no explanation, and then he gets this awful death scene.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I actually accepted his presence as being a kind of a very Robert E. Howard kind of thing.
Okay.
An evil wizard has a weird man-ape servant. Okay.
That's normal.
That's totally
okay.
That's totally within the genre.
Huh.
I mean, it makes sense with sort of the classic tales, but it still just makes you kind of go there's a lot of his story that just we don't know. He's the real victim of this whole thing. Kull isn't a victim. He's just a dumbass. No offense, but when you walk into that castle and the king is killing his own heirs and attacks people and you have to kill the king, and then the king's you get to be king. I would have been fuck that. You take this dumbass crown. By the way, the crown's stupid. It's a terrible crown. It's just tall. It's stupid.
Why did Kull even come with them? They didn't even let him into their stupid army.
Why is he there? Just
what? At no point did anyone say you're not even supposed to be here today, Kull.
They're all thinking,
get out of here.
Oh, he's a barbarian. Jesus Christ. So he's a barbarian, and he shows up, and it's dude, king's slaughtering his own heirs. GTFO. That is a total go the opposite direction. Get yourself on a horse and go 9 towns down, and you just don't stop. You just keep going till you get to that last town. But no, he's I'm gonna go in because I am a barbarian. And then he becomes king, and then his immediate thing is I'm gonna just undo all of the stuff. But there's no logic to it, because he's just I don't like slavery, so let's end slavery. And everyone's going but it's been tradition. And what they're trying to tell him is people are gonna be fucking pissed, dude. You have just cut off a huge thing, and we're all at home going, yes, it's it was 1997 when the film came out, right? So it's 1997, slavery's bad, let's get rid of it. But everyone's warning him, you are fucking with all of the laws of this land, and you're just doing it in a second.
It's gonna have societal consequences if you do that.
Well, he does it all in a 24-hour period. He just wipes out half their laws.
Well, to be fair, they do. The other characters do point out, "Whoa, slow down, buddy! You're going a little fast here."
Right.
You know what they did? They completely blew the chance there to have him turn and say, "Maybe I am going too fast, but call me irresponsible."
Oh.
I was waiting that whole damn movie for a Kull pun, and I didn't get one.
Oh, it's just the plot is just.
This movie is not a good entry point into the genre.
Oh.
If you haven't gathered. As someone who knows nothing of the genre, you'll be lost.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So now that we moved on to, I think, about our 87th dislikes.
I gotta give mine now.
Oh yes, please continue.
Oh god. Okay, we've gone over quite a few dislikes. Shit. What was my dislike that wasn't one we have mentioned?
Okay, while you're thinking, I have a question.
Okay, go.
What did Kull conquer?
Nothing. He was given everything.
Exactly. Exactly.
Call the receiver, not call the conqueror. He receives everything in this film. He is given being king, He's given sex because he doesn't do shit for it, right? He's given nature basically gives him his double-bladed axe at the end, right? Like, the only time he ever actually does anything vaguely Conqueror-like is at the end of the film, when he fights the bad guy in one of the worst choreographed scenes, which, holy shit, there's my dislike. Thank God. It is the choreography in this film. It is my dislike. And it goes right from the start to the very end, because the choreography is some lazy bullshit. And I appreciate that that they did their own choreography for the most part. Kevin Sorbo, as far as I'm aware, did all of his own choreography, and that's great. But dude, you don't know how to swing a sword, and you don't know how to like you just don't understand combat, and there's no sense of they just basically swing at each other a bunch, and it drove me nuts because at no point was oh, these fight scenes are interesting. Every single time I just kept thinking to myself, when does this end so that we can move on to something else? Please. And it never ended. It just kept going. I'm sad.
Now you know how the ape man felt.
Yeah, so that's just... I just hate the choreography. Anyway, that's good enough. If you see this movie, you'll understand. It's not good.
If you haven't seen the movie, why would you now go out and seek this thing out?
Yeah, I don't think we're selling it at this point.
We're definitely not selling it. I did hear a story on another podcast called We Hate Movies, and I cannot remember the movie that they're referring to, but apparently one of them went to a movie that Jackie Chan was in the audience, and Jackie Chan kept vocally criticizing the fight choreography in the film.
God.
And then when he left, he was like, that was the worst. Jackie Chan style. And then he left. And I now think in my headcanon that it was this movie that he was talking about, because it's that bad.
Let us just agree that that's true.
I think that's true. It has to be. All right, we're done. Let's just get our final thoughts and get our grades out. Let's just no more. This movie is fucking awful. Good God, why did you pick this, people? What is wrong with you? How does this have more than 20% on Rotten Tomatoes? How? Ethan, please give us your final thoughts and your grade, please.
This is a movie where nothing happens at breakneck speed, and it's not interesting at all. And it makes me sad to think that somebody might have seen this as their introduction to swords and sorcery and think that's what the subgenre is about. And I disliked it intensely. I'm going to give this thing... watching the credits, I was reminded that a great many Croatians were employed in the production of this film.
Jesus.
And in appreciation of the fact that movies, at the very least, involve paying lots of people some salaries, I will give it a D.
Okay, Daniel, give us your final thoughts and your grade, please.
There are some movies that I've seen either for Torture Cinema or for At the Movies for Skiffy and Fanny, where the discussions have brought to light things that I missed that make me realize that there's a lot more going on with it than I thought. This is not that movie. This is the reverse of that.
You think there's less going on?
Yes, I do. I thought in my mind, so I'm a scientist, and I look for hypotheses and, making theories and coming up with some order to the natural world when I observe things. And I observed this movie and thought, you know what? Hell, they funded it. It was released. It has really big name stars. It's got Harvey Fierstein. Underutilized, but it still has Harvey Fierstein. There should be something to this that explains it, some logic that I must be missing here. Particularly since I'm not that familiar with the swords and sorcery type epics. And so I think my brain just tried to put some kind of structure and order to it all to make it make sense. But now after having this discussion, it actually makes less sense to me. So thank you guys.
Oh God.
It's even less coherent in my mind than it was when I was watching it. There are still a few things about it that I do really like. Zoraida in particular, I like the character, like the performance. So it wasn't a total shit show. I've seen far worse. So I'm gonna have to go with Steven here and give it a D.
I think you just broke Sean.
Sean's gonna, he'll give it an F-, but he'll go lower at least.
Oh, God. I guess it's my turn for final thoughts. So I've had to think about this movie for 48 hours, because I watched it the night prior to us recording this live on our Discord channel, and had to experience that. And then I had to think about it today to make sure I was prepared for this podcast, which I just didn't want to do, so I avoided that a lot by doing other things, like pickling. I did some pickling of vegetables to try to distract myself. Things like that. This movie is... I don't want to say it's the worst film we've ever watched, because we've watched some real stinkers for torture cinema. But this is a film... Like, there are some films where, like, they're bad movies, but, like, if it was on TV, I'd probably watch some of it. And wouldn't necessarily enjoy it, but at least it'd be like, whatever, it's on TV. This is a film that if it's on TV, I am racing to find the remote as quickly as fucking possible. Because this film, like, should never be played. It should not be allowed to stream on any platform ever again. It should be put into the dustbins of history. Like, pretty much the only thing that this film should exist as is, like, a reel of, like, 30mm film in someone's, like basement freezer that he's kept in there because he doesn't want the film to degrade. But they never watch it, right? They just keep it in there. And that's how this film should be remembered, because it is one of the most awful fucking things I have ever had to watch. I can't stand it. I hate it. This film is best summed up by how they had to translate the film for the Finns, because apparently the word Kull is a little too close to the Finnish word for penis, so they had to change the name to Kull with an A. But unfortunately, that's only the case for the books when they translated them to Finnish. The movie, they didn't change the movie name, so they made it penis, basically, in Finnish. Alright, left it as Kull. That explains the amount of effort that went into this film, is they left it as penis related for the Finns. So, I hate this movie. I want it to burn in a fiery, deep pit for all time. And that's why I'm giving it an F-, because fuck this movie.
Right.
It's bad. I would watch Mac and Me 24 hours
Oh, God.
a day. Anyway, so we're done. Like, we got like an average of bad.
Thanks, Patreon.
Thanks a lot, Patreon. If you want to obviously support us, you can go to patreon.com/SkiffyInfanty. You do get access to the Torture Cinema polls. You also get the right to make suggestions about what goes in the polls that you then get to vote on. So if that is something you'd like to do, if you enjoy making us suffer endlessly through this hell, please go to our Patreon page, become a patron. Pretty much everybody gets to do it, so just go there. Other than that, thank you, Steven and Daniel, for doing this with me, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you're welcome.
Yeah, I did my best.
And it's about time that I call it a day.
There you go, Sean. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm calling it a day, guys.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It took a minute to get it. So on that note, awkward ending and scene. If you would like to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/SkiffyInfanty or find us on Twitter @SkiffyInfanty, our webpage, SkiffyInfanty.com, or you can even send us an email at SkiffyInfanty@gmail.com. The intro music for this podcast was taken from Rock Thing by Creo. You can find out more about their music on freemusicarchive.org.